This HOA saga started with a $60,000 Escalade and 57 destroyed trash cans. Every morning, Karen, Brenda Whitmore, really, used her massive vehicle to turn my driveway into a demolition zone. So, I replaced my plastic bin with a concrete one and watched as her own SUV became the casualty. What began as a mundane morning ritual of property destruction ended with criminal charges, a $12,000 settlement, and one very expensive lesson: never pick a fight with the wrong neighbor. Picture it: the sharp crack of plastic shattering in, the early morning, followed by the metallic scrape of bumper against asphalt as a pearl-white Escalade roars away, leaving my garbage scattered like confetti. Bullies never expect their victims to fight back, with actual concrete evidence. By the time it was over, this self-appointed compliance officer had demolished her own vehicle, exposed a $47,000 embezzlement, and learned the hard way that some neighbors don't bow to clipboards and fake authority. What would you do if your neighbor treated your property like a demolition derby every morning? Drop a comment. I want to see if this HOA madness is happening in your town too. Let me back up. My name is Marcus Holloway. I'm 45, an electrician for 22 years, recently divorced, and fighting for joint custody of my teenagers, Emma, 16, and Tyler, 14. We live in Pinewood Gardens, a cookie-cutter HOA neighborhood in suburban Ohio where lawns must be exactly 2.5 inches and mailboxes come in only 3 approved colors. Bought the corner lot house 3 years ago after the divorce papers were signed, thinking it would be a fresh start. The kids could have their own rooms, good schools, a safe neighborhood. What I didn't expect was Brenda Whitmore, a 52-year-old widow who crowned herself the neighborhood compliance officer, a title that doesn't even exist in our HOA bylaws. Brenda drives a pearl-white Escalade bigger than some studio apartments. She moved in 3 years ago after her husband died. No kids, retired from managing a downtown bank, knows every HOA rule by heart, and treats our dues like her personal slush fund. She's close with HOA President Gerald Thornfield, which makes her practically untouchable. Now, geography becomes key. My corner lot means the trash pickup requires me to place my bin near the street every Tuesday morning. City ordinance says, within 3 feet of the curb, right in the path of Brenda's daily 6:15 a.m. power walk. The first incident was a Tuesday in September. I was getting the kids ready, coffee brewing, garbage truck still 20 minutes away, when, crack! Plastic exploded like a gunshot. I rushed outside, my trash can obliterate, garbage everywhere. Brenda backed up her Escalade, rolling down the window with a fake concerned expression. "Oh my," she said, "these streets are narrow. Hope, you weren't too attached to that old thing." Old thing? I bought it the week before for $23 at Home Depot. I stayed calm, cleaned up the mess, and tried to brush it off. That first week, it happened 3 more times. Same routine. 6:15 a.m., the rumble of her oversized engine, the sickening crunch of plastic against steel, then silence as she drove away. By Friday, I was suspicious. By the next Tuesday, I knew it was deliberate. My elderly neighbor, Mrs. Olivia, confirmed it. Plenty of room on the other side, but she drives close to your can every time. I tried reasoning with Brenda. "Hey, about the trash can situation." She cut me off with a saccharine smile. "Marcus, these streets are for normalized vehicles, not oversized containers. Perhaps adjust your placement timing." Magical. Placement timing that doesn't exist. That night, I researched property rights, HOA bylaws, municipal ordinances. Trash cans on public right-of-way are still personal property. Our HOA had no rules on timing or materials. Only that cans can't be visible except on collection day. By month's end, I'd replaced 4 trash cans for $92 total. Kids were stressed. My custody evaluator was noting neighborhood instability. Something had to change. Brenda's smirk grew. Direct eye contact, that little satisfied smile during her morning runs. game on. 2 weeks into October, Brenda escalated. Psychological warfare. I came home to a certified letter, the kind that makes your stomach drop. Improper trash placement creating a traffic hazard. 72 hours to fix or face. 50-day fines. She'd rushed this through the board while they were still digesting my documentation from the last meeting. My troubleshooting instincts kicked in. After hours cross-referencing city ordinances with county regulations, I hit the jackpot. City. Code required placement within 3 feet of the curb, and HOA jurisdiction ends at the property line. I prepped my defense like an electrical exam. Ring doorbell camera, professional survey, Mrs. Olivia's written statement. Brenda, meanwhile, became the neighborhood social media prosecutor, posting about dangerous homeowners and corner hazards. Then the twist. A buddy at City Hall called. 4 complaints filed against my corner, all time-stamped 2:47 a.m., all clearly from the same person. By Thursday's board meeting, I had a folder thick enough to choke a horse. 12 homeowners showed up, a record crowd. Brenda sat at the board table in a navy blazer, trying to look confident, but her hands trembled. She knew what was coming. When old business was called, I stood with my documentation ready. I'd like to address the violation notice regarding trash can placement. The fluorescent lights hummed as the room went silent. I read the city ordinance aloud, displayed my survey results proving perfect compliance, and mentioned my consultation with Amanda Sterling, a property rights attorney who'd handled dozens of HOA cases. She found the selective enforcement patterns especially interesting. Brenda's face went pale. President Thornfield cleared his throat 3 times. Well, this requires further review. We'll table this matter pending additional consideration. Translation. They had nothing, and everyone knew it. But Brenda wasn't done. As we filed out, she cornered me in the parking lot under buzzing security lights. "You think you're so smart?" she hissed loud enough for a dozen homeowners to hear. "People like you come into decent neighborhoods thinking rules don't apply. This is just the beginning." Mrs. Rodriguez from Maple Street gasped. Jim Torres, the maintenance guy, suddenly discovered his keys. The racial undertones hung heavy in the humid October air. My phone, tucked in my shirt pocket, captured every venomous word. That night, Emma asked why the mean lady hated us. Tyler, worried we'd have to move again. I tucked them in, promising it would work out. Privately, I was calculating the cost of this war. 3 replacement trash cans, 14 hours of documentation, attorney fees mounting. But something had shifted in the community. Other homeowners were whispering, asking uncomfortable questions about selective enforcement. Brenda's parking lot meltdown had revealed the truth. This wasn't about traffic safety. It was about power. The next morning brought a subtle change. Instead of her usual ramming speed, Brenda crawled past my trash can, scrutinizing it like a general planning an assault. The pattern had evolved, and bigger trouble was coming. November hit Pinewood Gardens like a cold slap, and Brenda escalated. She weaponized obscure HOA bylaws. Violations came fast: grass height at 2.75 inches instead of 2.5, mailbox color, fading from heritage blue to unauthorized weathered navy, and 3 tiny window screen tiers requiring a magnifying glass to see. Each carried a $50 fine with a 10-day payment deadline. I spent a Saturday documenting identical violations across 14 other properties. Gerald Thornfield's grass pushed 3 inches. Mrs. Patterson's mailbox had faded the same way. Half the Maple Street homes had hail-damaged screens, yet only mine drew official attention. While Brenda played bylaw prosecutor, I had coffee with Dale Kowalski at Home Depot. Dale's poured concrete for 23 years. When I mentioned my trash can troubles, his weathered face broke into a grin. There's nothing in city code restricting materials for trash containers. Plastic, metal, Concrete. As long as it holds garbage and meets size requirements, you're golden. That conversation planted a seed for Brenda's worst nightmare. 60 pounds of concrete mix, steel rebar for reinforcement, and a clever modification to a standard plastic shell. Total cost, $47, versus hundreds in fines and replacement cans. First, though, I had to document Brenda's harassment. Tuesday evening, photos of every comparable violation in the neighborhood. Wednesday morning, formal complaint filed with the HOA Board for Selective Enforcement. Bureaucrats hate when you use their own system against them, and my complaint forced the board to either enforce rules equally or admit targeting me. Neither option worked in Brenda's favor. The real twist, analyzing the demographics of her violation targets. In the past year, Brenda issued 67 notices, 49 to single parents, elderly residents, or minorities, only 18 to married couples or longtime homeowners. The pattern practically screamed lawsuit. I smiled, thinking about her explaining these citations to a civil rights attorney. Friday afternoon, I started my concrete project. Emma and Tyler helped mix cement in the garage while classic rock played on my paint-splattered radio. The smell of setting concrete brought back memories of helping my dad pour our basement floor 30 years ago. Hollow bottom for weight distribution, drainage holes for function, exterior identical to every other can on the block. From the outside, it looked normal. Inside, 60 pounds of steel-reinforced concrete waited to teach Brenda a physics lesson. Monday morning, I positioned the reinforced trash can in the usual spot. At 6:15, Brenda's oversized engine rumbled closer, but slower, cautious. First collision at 15 minutes. No sickening crunch of plastic. Instead, a solid think, screech of metal on concrete. Her running board bent like foil while my trash can sat, mildly offended. Through the kitchen window, coffee mug warm, I watched Brenda sit in her SUV for 30 seconds, clearly confused. She tried again from another angle. Same result. Zero damage to my concrete fortress, more damage to her Escalade. Over the week, her attacks grew desperate. Each collision left scratches and dents on her vehicle. My can remained unscathed. By Friday, her SUV showed nearly $800 in damage. Mine? A few scuff marks to look authentic. Neighbors started talking, and for once, Brenda didn't control the narrative. By mid-November, she transformed into a full-blown private investigator. Obsessed, she patrolled odd hours, trying to weigh my trash can with a flashlight and bathroom scale. Mrs. Olivia's report confirmed it. I laughed, imagining her navy blazer and sensible shoes sneaking around at midnight, plotting the mystery of the indestructible trash can. The woman desperately needed a new hobby. The investigation intensified all week. Jim Torres, our maintenance guy, mentioned Brenda had cornered him at the hardware store, interrogating him about concrete purchases and asking which residents had bought unusual materials. She'd even started stalking my social media, scanning Facebook posts for weekend project hints. Her desperation peaked when she tried to weaponize city bureaucracy again. Thursday afternoon, a building inspector knocked. Pete, a tired-looking guy, clearly had better things to do than investigate trash cans. Ma'am filed a complaint about potential building code violations, he explained, checking boxes like he was filing taxes. Something about unauthorized concrete structures on residential property. I walked him around to my trash can. 30 seconds later, he shook his head. It's a garbage container, not a foundation. No permits required, no violations present. Honestly, I'd seen people build entire sheds without this much scrutiny. Brenda wasn't finished. The following week brought an HOA notice demanding immediate access for compliance verification. Drafted by Brenda, rubber-stamped by Thornfield, it claimed they needed to inspect my exterior modifications. My research in property rights came in handy. Narrat v. Lakeside Village made it clear HOAs can't conduct fishing expeditions on private property without cause or emergency. My response was firm. No access without court order or emergency. They could inspect from the public sidewalk like everyone else. Brenda's frustration smelled almost as satisfying as fresh concrete. Meanwhile, her Escalade was becoming a rolling ad for steel-reinforced trash cans. Each morning brought a new collision attempt, each leaving fresh damage on her SUV. The running board hung at a crooked angle, the bumper spiderwebbed with cracks, one headlight rattling. The neighborhood noticed. During Saturday coffee, I overheard 3 conversations about the crazy woman hitting the same trash can. Mrs. Rodriguez timed Brenda's routine. Elm Street kids started betting on daily collisions. Emma found it hilarious and embarrassing. Dad, kids at school are asking if we're the family with the concrete can lady. I don't know whether to hide or take credit for the coolest revenge story. Tyler, ever practical, suggested selling tickets to the morning demolition derby. The real breakthrough came from Patricia Lopez, the only reasonable board member. After a neighborhood gathering, she pulled me aside near the coffee station. Marcus, Brenda's having private meetings with Gerald about enhanced enforcement authority, property inspections, material restrictions, even contractor background checks. And she's pushing maintenance contracts with companies no one's heard of. That night, I started a different investigation. If Brenda obsessed over controlling projects and contractors, maybe it wasn't just power, it was profit. Public records don't lie. By Sunday, I uncovered something that made her trash can obsession look minor. Brenda Whitmore wasn't just a control freak, she was running a scam. Deep into city contract databases, I found Whitmore Construction LLC, formed 6 months ago. Brenda owned 40%. Her husband, Richard, was president. The timeline made my skin crawl. Company formed in May, first HOA maintenance bid in July, harassment campaign against me in September. Over 4 months, Whitmore Construction won 7 HOA contracts, landscape edging, sidewalk repairs, community center touch-ups, playground maintenance, $23,400 total, each underbid by $5,100. Legal, but rigged. Brenda voted to approve every single contract. 7 approvals, 7 payouts. Conflict of interest so blatant it might as well have had neon signs. I remembered fiduciary duty violations from my earlier research. Board members must disclose financial interests. Failure risks civil lawsuits, criminal fraud charges. The evidence was all there. Registration documents, HOA minutes, contract records, bank deposits. My first polite conversation about trash cans? September 15th. Harassment campaign began. September 3rd, 12 days after I asked about the budget. My concrete trash can wasn't just blocking her morning walk, it was protecting proof of systematic theft from 127 homeowners. The scope was staggering. Civil liability, criminal exposure, automatic removal from the board. I printed everything, saved copies to 3 cloud services, and emailed it to attorney Amanda Sterling with urgent review, possible criminal implications. The power dynamic shifted. Brenda thought she was fighting a divorced electrician over a trash can. She was actually facing exposure for a fraud scheme that could land her in federal prison. Tuesday morning, I watched from my kitchen window as she made her usual collision attempt. Her Escalade had over $1,200 in accumulated damage. My concrete fortress sat unmoved. For the first time, I wasn't thinking about trash cans, HOA bylaws, or morning demolition derbies. I was thinking about justice, protecting the community, and watching a bully face consequence. That Tuesday evening, my garage transformed into a war room. Workbenches cleared, folding tables set, 5 mismatched chairs arranged in a circle around an evidence board, construction paper and red string ready, like something straight out of a crime drama. The crime thriller phase kicked off sharply. At 7 p.m., The core team assembled like a covert ops unit. Mrs. Olivia arrived first, clutching a thermos of jasmine tea, nerves visible but determined. Jim Torres showed up in his maintenance uniform, tool belt jangling. Patricia Lopez carried a stack of HOA financial documents borrowed from the board files. Dale Kowalski rolled in last, grinning, box of donuts in hand, as if we were planning a surprise party instead of exposing municipal corruption. "All right," I said, taping the final timeline chart to the garage wall. "Here's what we're dealing with." The evidence layout looked federal level: $23,000 in questionable contracts, 7 conflict of interest violations, 47 documented harassment incidents, and 1 increasingly battered Escalade serving as rolling proof of Brenda's unraveling. Patricia whistled low at the financial analysis. Dale examined the vehicle damage photos with professional interest. That bumper alone, $2,000 easy. Concrete cans, turning her SUV into a very expensive life lesson, he said. We spent the next hour organizing our multi-pronged strategy. Jim would monitor Brenda and document retaliation. Mrs. Olivia would rally neighbor support. Patricia would work the board to push for a financial audit. Dale would advise on construction-related evidence. Legally, Amanda Sterling confirmed we had solid cases for harassment, financial fraud, and board misconduct. But timing was everything. File too early, and Brenda might destroy evidence. Wait too long, and she could complete her cover-up. I learned something crucial from 22 years of electrical troubleshooting. Complex problems require layered solutions. Fighting HOA overreach with property rights alone is like fixing a short circuit by replacing one fuse. You need to address the whole system. Our attack would hit from 4 angles: legal, criminal complaints, civil suits; social, community, organizing, petitions; political, media coverage, municipal oversight; and financial, audit demands, contract cancellations. Community organizing began Wednesday morning. Armed with professional presentations and irrefutable documentation, ETDNA visited every house in Pinewood Gardens. Response: overwhelming. 89 signatures supporting property rights, 34 demanding immediate audits, 12 volunteering testimony. Mrs. Rodriguez nearly slammed the door, then signed furiously, muttering Spanish phrases probably not complimentary to Brenda. Mapping the opposition revealed patterns. Hardcore supporters were long-term homeowners who benefited from selective enforcement. Fence-sitters were newer residents afraid of retaliation. Everyone else wanted accountability. Media prep took 3 days. Channel 7 investigative reporter Sarah Kim, experienced in HOA scandals, received a press kit with timeline graphics, legal analysis, and 12 minutes of video showing Brenda's escalating collisions. The social media campaign exploded. Pinewood Gardens Transparency Facebook group gained 67 members in 4 days, sharing stories of harassment, selective enforcement, and financial irregularities. A time-lapse of Brenda's morning routine, set to circus music, went viral. Meanwhile, my concrete trash can remain both evidence and entertainment. Thursday morning, collision attempt Latcha 53. A dangling headlight like a broken tooth. Neighborhood kids gathered early to watch. Emma reported her friends at school dubbed our house the indestructible trash can place. Tyler started charging classmates 50 cents for video compilations. By Sunday, everything was coordinated. Board meetings scheduled for Tuesday, media interviews Wednesday, criminal complaints Thursday. 118 residents committed to attend, 17 speaking during public comment. The coalition was built. Evidence bulletproof. Brenda had no idea. The weekend before the board ambush, Brenda went off the rails. Desperation has a distinct smell, like burnt coffee and panic sweat, and it radiated from her every move. Saturday night. Spray paint hissed outside my bedroom window. A dark figure crouched beside the trash can, illuminated by motion sensor lights. By the time I grabbed my phone, they were gone, leaving amateur graffiti spelling "move" in bright orange across the concrete. Beautiful thing about concrete, pressure washes off in 30 seconds. And security cameras captured everything, including the license plate of a pearl white Escalade parked 3 houses down. Monday brought more harassment. An anonymous gas company complaint claiming suspicious excavation. The inspector spent 2 hours checking before confirming. No digging, no violations. Brenda's desperation hit a new level. Tuesday, Jim Torres found me at the hardware store. Marcus, she hired a private security company, Riverside Security, $200 day to watch your house over a trash can dispute. The woman's lost it. Her surveillance worked both ways. My upgraded system captured drive-bys, midnight photography, and erratic behaviors. She was unraveling, and every moment was being documented. Wednesday, Emma came home upset. She'd overheard Brenda talking to another parent about dangerous neighborhood influences and inappropriate role models for children. The racial undertones were clear. The implications for my custody situation were frightening. At evening, I hired Beth Morrison, a retired detective specializing in harassment cases. $200 day for professional documentation and testimony about escalation and threat patterns. Sabotage attempts escalated throughout the week. Battery acid poured on the concrete, minor stain only, anonymous complaints about lawn height and electrical permits, fake negative Google reviews on my business. But the biggest shock came Friday. Tyler found a small black device with blinking lights attached to my truck's undercarriage. "Dad, what's this?" he asked, voice tight. "A GPS tracker, professional grade, probably $300, definitely illegal without consent." I photographed it from every angle and drove straight to the police station. Officer Derek Martinez took the report with the weary look of someone familiar with escalating neighborhood disputes. Things had escalated far beyond neighborhood disputes. Unauthorized surveillance, stalking, and harassment were now building a case that could result in serious criminal charges. Brenda's insurance fraud angle developed simultaneously. She'd filed a $3,200 claim for road hazard damage, insisting her collision occurred on a city street, not my property. The problem? My Ring camera footage, showing deliberate targeting of my trash can from multiple angles over weeks. When State Farm's investigator called, I was ready. Complete evidence package. 53 documented collision attempts, witness statements, video, compilation, and professional damage assessments. The reaction was immediate. "Ma'am," she said, "this isn't road hazard damage. This is intentional property destruction with an expensive vehicle. Claim denied. Case referred to our fraud unit for criminal investigation." Community pressure built like steam in a pressure cooker. Our Facebook group grew to 94 members, sharing increasingly outrageous stories. Mrs. Patterson harassed over her rose bushes, the Johnsons fined for children's sidewalk chalk, and even Gerald Thornfield quietly distancing himself. Saturday morning brought collision attempt Thucker 57. Brenda ended up with a completely detached bumper she had to retrieve from my driveway. Crawling around in her business attire while neighbors watched would have been hilarious if it weren't so pathetic. By Sunday evening, the evidence was complete. Criminal behavior documented, witness statements notarized, financial fraud exposed, community coalition organized. Tuesday's board meeting wouldn't just be a confrontation, it would be a public reckoning. Monday morning, 12 hours before the showdown, Brenda made her most desperate move. Gerald Thornfield called an emergency closed-door session, citing escalating liability and community safety concerns. Through the blinds, I could see Brenda waving documents like surrender flags. Patricia Lopez texted updates. "Brenda's claiming you've made terrorist threats. Wants emergency powers to seize dangerous modifications." Harold looks like he'd rather defend serial killers. Their cover-up attempt was as clumsy as Brenda's. Morning collisions. Backdated conflict of interest forms for Whitmore Construction. Digital timestamps told the real story. Retroactive ethics compliance doesn't work when original votes are public record. Meanwhile, the insurance investigation accelerated. Investigator Maria Santos subpoenaed HOA financial records, meeting minutes, and all correspondence between Brenda and the insurer. A paper trail as subtle as a train wreck. Tuesday afternoon. A twist. Richard Whitmore, Brenda's husband, called. Voice barely above a whisper. "Marcus, this has to stop. $8,000 spent on lawyers, surveillance, and repairs. Insurance canceled. Contracts at risk. What would it take to make this go away?" I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "Richard, your wife stalked my family, vandalized my property, committed insurance fraud, and embezzled from 127 homeowners. This isn't solved with an apology or a check." 2 hours before the board meeting, Brenda filed an emergency restraining order petition with fabricated evidence, fake voicemails, doctored photos, and non-existent witnesses. Judge Patricia Williams dismissed it without a hearing. "Miss Whitmore, these recordings are edited, photos staged, witnesses fictional. Filing false evidence is contempt. Consider this your only warning. Legal troubles multiplied." The state insurance commissioner's office was building a criminal fraud case. The DA's office was reviewing harassment and stalking charges. The IRS had copies of unreported income from Whitmore construction contracts. By 6 p.m., the community center parking lot was packed like Black Friday at Best Buy. Cars lined Maple Street. Neighbors carried lawn chairs and signs from blocks away. Media vans arrived punctually. Inside, 118 residents crammed into a space built for 40, with overflow along walls and hallways. Anxiety and industrial coffee created an atmosphere thick, enough to chew. Brenda arrived late, flanked by attorney Harold Masterson's son, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. Her navy blazer replaced with funeral black, hands visibly trembling. Gerald Thornfield kept adjusting his tie like a noose. Intimidation had backfired spectacularly. Masterson's son began his opening statement about frivolous complaints, interrupted by Mrs. Olivia. "Excuse me, but which one of us has been committing insurance fraud and embezzling money?" Applause and nervous laughter erupted. 17 neighbors spoke during public comment, armed with documentation of harassment, financial misconduct, and selective enforcement. Evidence filled 3 bankers' boxes: collision videos, contract analyses, criminal complaint receipts. The real bombshell arrived at 6:45. Officer Derek Martinez entered, folder in hand. "Sorry to interrupt, but I have a warrant regarding insurance fraud and stalking charges." Color drained from Brenda's face faster than antifreeze from her damaged Escalade. Harold whispered legal advice frantically. Gerald looked like he was facing his own execution. Game over. Checkmate. I positioned myself in the 3rd row, flanked by Mrs. Olivia and Jim Torres. My concrete trash can sat proudly beside the podium. Exhibit A. That 60-pound monument to her stupidity had become the star witness. Brenda sat at the board table, scanning for escape routes. Officer Martinez's presence ensured nothing could save her. The room fell silent, save for news cameras and the nervous tap-tap-tap of her pen, a rapid staccato like Morse code. "Help me." I stood, presentation boards in hand, voice carrying through the packed space. This isn't about trash cans. This isn't about HOA bylaws or property rights or community standards. This is about accountability, transparency, and stopping corruption before it destroys. I walked the audience through the timeline methodically. 57 documented collision attempts, each recorded in high definition. The GPS tracker illegally placed on my vehicle. The spray paint vandalism captured on security cameras. the fake insurance claims that constituted felony fraud. But the real showstopper was the financial presentation. Using a borrowed projector, I displayed the contract analysis showing $23,400 funneled directly from community dues into Brenda's family business account. Every month you've been paying higher fees to fund Mrs. Whitmore's personal construction company, I announced, watching jaws drop throughout the room. 7 contracts, 7 undisclosed conflicts of interest, 7 violations of state nonprofit law. The video compilation played next. 12 minutes of Brenda's greatest hits, set to a soundtrack of crunching plastic and scraping metal. Gasps and nervous laughter provided the perfect accompaniment to her increasingly desperate collision attempts. Then came themic drop moment. "Mrs. Whitmore," I said, turning to face her directly while cameras rolled, "you've spent $3,400 on lawyers, destroyed your $60,000 vehicle, committed insurance fraud, and stalked my family over a $23 trash can. But the real crime is the $47,000 you've stolen from this community through your family's construction company." The room erupted. Neighbors who'd grumbled about rising HOA fees finally understood where their money had gone. Mrs. Rodriguez stood, shouting in rapid Spanish, likely not complimentary. Teenagers from Elm Street clapped like they were at a concert. Brenda's reaction was everything I hoped for. She shot up from her chair like a jack-in-the-box, her carefully constructed composure finally cracking. "This is harassment," she screamed, her voice piercing the room. "These people don't understand property values or community standards. They come into decent neighborhoods and think rules don't apply to them." The racial undertones hung in the air like smoke from a house fire. Channel 7 captured every word, every gesture, every moment of her complete psychological breakdown. Mrs. Olivia gasped audibly as Brenda pointed at her, shouting about certain elements ruining the community. Harold Masterson's son tried to intervene, but Brenda was beyond legal advice. She grabbed my evidence boards, attempting to tear them apart before Jim Torres and 2 other neighbors restrained her gently. Officer Martinez calmly took notes for his incident report. "I built this community," she shrieked, mascara running like black tears. "I protected property values. I kept standards high. And this is how you treat someone who sacrificed everything for neighborhood integrity?" Gerald Thornfield called for a recess, but nobody left. This was better than reality TV, more dramatic than a soap opera, more satisfying than watching a bully step on a rake. Patricia Lopez stood amid the chaos and made the motion everyone had been waiting for. "I move for the immediate suspension of Brenda Whitmore from the board, pending criminal investigation and financial audit." The vote was unanimous, 4-0, with Brenda abstaining while handcuffed to Officer Martinez's chair. Justice served, concrete cold, with a side of public humiliation. The aftermath unfolded like dominoes. Within 48 hours, Brenda's world collapsed faster than her Escalade's suspension under repeated concrete impacts. Tuesday morning brought her formal resignation, followed by bitter texts citing hostile work environment and personal attacks. By Thursday, the district attorney filed insurance fraud charges carrying up to 6 months in jail and $5,000 in fines. Her insurance license was revoked Friday, and Whitmore Construction's contractor certification suspended. Financial reckoning was swift. Patterson and Associates CPAs recovered $47,000 in overcharges and questionable contracts. Every homeowner received a $170 refund check by Christmas, the sweetest holiday gift Pinewood Gardens had ever seen. Richard Whitmore called one final time, voice hollow. "The civil settlement check is in the mail. $12,500, as agreed. Brenda's moving to Florida to live with her sister." I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Then I remembered the GPS tracker, the fake insurance claims, and months of harassment. Some lessons are expensive, and this one cost them everything. Governance transformed overnight. Patricia Lopez won the special election for board president unanimously, implementing transparency measures, public contractor bidding processes, and monthly financial reporting. Our first community project under reformed leadership: the playground. Renovation, funded entirely by recovered embezzlement money. Watching Emma and Tyler help design the equipment alongside neighbors who'd once whispered about our disruptive family felt like emotional vindication wrapped in practical progress. The legal precedent spread beyond our neighborhood. Holloway v. Pinewood Gardens HOA was cited in 12 subsequent property rights cases across Ohio. The state legislature passed the HOA Accountability Act, requiring financial disclosure and audits that insurance investigators called the gold standard. Channel 7's investigative series won a regional Emmy, and reporter Sarah Kim still calls for commentary on HOA reform legislation. Our concrete trash can become a neighborhood legend. Moved to the community center lobby, it bore a bronze plaque reading, "Property Rights Protected 2023." New homeowners got the full story, and visiting contractors often asked to see the indestructible can that brought down a corrupt board. Community. Healing was the real victory. The Concrete Can Days Festival, held every September, drew families from 3 surrounding developments, featuring bounce houses, barbecue competitions, and workshops on homeowner rights. Last year, attendance topped 800. The scholarship funds I established with settlement money helped 4 students attend college, rewarding creative problem-solving in the face of institutional opposition. Emu and Tyler learned lessons no civics class could teach. Emma's journalism essays earned her admission to 3 top programs. Tyler launched Suburban Justice, covering HOA disputes across the Midwest with teenage investigative fervor. Our custody evaluation improved dramatically. The judge noted that children benefit from seeing parents protect family interests legally rather than surrendering or resorting to violence. My electrical contracting business thrived. Referrals pouring in from neighbors impressed by my documentation skills and strategic thinking. Methodical problem-solving translates well from HOA disputes to complex wiring projects. Sometimes David does beat Goliath, but only when David comes prepared, with evidence, allies, and 60 pounds of steel-reinforced concrete. Drop a comment with your HOA nightmare story. Share, subscribe, and let's build a community of resistance. Justice tastes sweetest when served with preparation, patience, and community support. On HOA Stories, the HOA Karens finally meet their match.